It's that time of year in the NBA when we start to talk about rosters. Will the Suns actually keep six big men? Will they make a trade? What should we be looking for the rest of the season? Aaron Edwards is here to help us break all of it down. Coming up right away for you on Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member, contributor at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single day. You can find us on YouTube, where our channel is growing slowly but surely, and over on any of your favorite podcast platforms. We are here for you every single day, and we are free. And the best way to keep us that way is to do exactly what you are already doing: listening, watching, subscribing, and following along every day. A lot to get to today. Aaron Edwards is here to help us break it down. He is a writer at All Caps NBA for Crooked Media, and it's been a while since we chatted. Aaron, how are your holidays? How are you doing? How are you feeling about the Suns?
They were really good. I think we haven't talked since the Christmas game, and that was whatever. But yeah, for the most part, it's been a really nice break. We just got back to work today, so it's really nice.
Yeah, it's looking like I never thought we would have an NBA Omicron chart to be looking at, but if you look, Tom Haberstroh had it on Twitter, and the guys, I think it's called Fansure, that the folks over there had it, that we are at the bottom. We're starting to go toward the bottom of the NBA wave here. And so hopefully real NBA players will be back on our screens. NBA TV will stop taking all the good games every night just to make money, and I can actually watch basketball again that I want to watch. And we are on the other side of this thing, at least in sports here. But what everybody's talking about, I think, Aaron, today, at least in Suns land, is Bismack Biyombo, Jalen Smith, the big man rotation. James Jones just gave an interview on 98.7 FM here locally, where he kind of said guys are going to start to come back, but it's really a matter of conditioning. I think the Suns players who got hit with this actually kind of had COVID, not just tested positive for COVID. And so you don't want them to be rushed back. The Suns are winning games anyway. So it's going to start to be a decision for James Jones here about what is this roster going to look like. So I'm curious what you've thought of seeing Smith and Biyombo, I mean, do their best Ayton impression, honestly, and actually get the job done.
Yeah, it's been a while. It was June. We didn't have enough big men, and now we have all of them. It's crazy. We were really scraping the bottom of the barrel against Milwaukee, and now James Jones went the other way, and I guess he said, I'm not going to have little big man anymore.
Here's a big.
He was like, I'm giving you guys the big men that you wanted and that you whined about all summer. And it's been really fun. I didn't know Bismack had this in him, and I definitely didn't know Jalen Smith had this in him. I guess it was just he just needed the minutes with the starters kind of thing. Putting them in with Elfrid Payton probably wasn't going to help the viewership when it came to him. But he's really been showing me something. He runs the floor well. He's really confident shooting. He has a really good stroke when he does pull up, and I just didn't really see that coming from him, but I guess he just needed the minutes.
I guess so. I mean, Jalen Smith, I think you hear from the coaches and stuff, it's a lot of his communication's not there, the time, all that little stuff. And it's because the guy's played 300 minutes, right? It's going to come. And that's what always never felt really fair to me, the option getting declined and all that stuff. And I've been on that for a while, but the reality is he doesn't have that contract in place for next year. He's going to be a free agent. And so I don't personally know how much it makes sense to invest in him, either by continuing to give him minutes or operating like he's a part of your future when he just probably isn't. Yeah. But, there is obviously the idea that he's on the team this year, and you could either find a trade or maybe you trust him to at least be there as a depth piece for you. So those are some of the decisions that'll be facing them. And then this new wrinkle, which is Bismack Biyombo, and the fact that somehow he's looking better than I ever remember watching this guy look. Like I thought he had this whole reputation of being, no, can't catch a ball in the pick and roll, can't really finish that way. And then all of a sudden he's out there like Amari Stoudemire or somebody, and it looks fluid as hell. And he's like getting and one dunks and this and that. So do you feel like Biyombo's somebody that the Suns need or would be better if they kept him come playoff time? Like, is he a piece that you feel like is it worth keeping around? Because it seems like they're at least thinking about it.
Yeah, I think you do need like those kind of guys in the playoffs, though. Like, that's still like 6 hard fouls that you could use, especially when lineups start getting shorter. And I feel like playing with Chris Paul just makes you better. And like Ayton, he couldn't catch before he got to Chris Paul either. He didn't really have any strong post moves. And I feel like whenever Chris Paul, Jalen Smith, like anybody who's out there with him, Chris Paul's going to get a big man 10. Like, he's going to get you 10 points. And I just feel like Chris Paul helps that a lot. Like, I don't think Jalen Smith is going to come back. But Bismack-wise, like, I really think, like, he's the type of, like, gritty player that the Suns kind of need it. Because once teams tried, like the Clippers tried to really just bully the Suns a little bit, and it got a little touchy there. So I think Bismack is one of those players you kind of need in the playoff time once it gets like toward bully ball.
And he's like JaVale, in my opinion, in the way that you can like just in the way he plays, the way he's kind of, he's done a couple media interviews with the since he's joined the Suns, and like they just know their role, right? Like JaVale, I mean, JaVale kind of does some crazy stuff that makes you question if he really knows his role sometimes. But like at the end of the day, he's out there to rebound, he's out there to protect the rim, to finish, to be, somewhat of a leader in terms of like do as I do type of stuff. And I think Biyombo, like, he's not going to be somebody you would bring into this locker room and it's going to disrupt anything. So I think in that way, like, he's not going to try to bite off more than he can chew. He's been around. He gets it. He's probably just happy to be back in the NBA because he wasn't before he got here. So, like, to me, those are all the positives. I just think, like I said at the very top in my intro, the idea of keeping 6 big men in 2022 in the NBA feels insane to me, especially when we don't even know if Kaminsky or Saric are even going to be able to play again this season. Like, having 6 of them with 2 like medical red shirts is kind of crazy. So how do you feel about all that? If they were to keep Biyombo, does that mean that they have to trade Jalen Smith? Are they, just kind of roll with the punches and see what happens and the roster's fine as it is? Like, where do you see this? Because they really only had that one roster spot to work with. And I think I'd be lying if I said like my high hopes for that was Bismack Biyombo.
Yeah. I feel like if they do keep Biyombo, that means that Saric has no chance of coming back this year. And Frank Kaminsky is probably way more hurt than we thought. And that means like he is one of the only bigs we have, even though I would like a better stretch big like Kaminsky or Saric to stretch the floor and pass. But it would mostly just be telling if we kept him. Like, it would be nice if we kept him. But if we like end up keeping them, that means we like had to. And that's what's scary, is we don't have like the scoring big, because some of those lineups, like the one yesterday, when it's Biyombo, I think it was Justin Johnson and Elfrid Payton on the floor all at the same time. Like, there was no scoring out there. It was a disaster.
It was ugly.
And that's what I get worried about, like not having a dude that could get open and get a shot or make a pass.
I felt bad for Bridges. I think he was out there in one of those lineups at one point. I'm like, you're the most talented guy out there and we all know it, but like the idea that you're going to make something happen with these 4 dudes is that'd be kind of mean to expect that out of him. But I think you're right. And that's a good way to put it, in terms of like, it would be kind of eye-opening of, okay, wow, like this is kind of bleak in terms of the health situation right now. But I think if they end up deciding like, hey, we don't know what's up with Frank, we don't know what's up with Dario, we can't just roll into the playoffs with only 2 guys who can play in the front court, so we need somebody, and you don't think that's like, you don't feel comfortable with that being Jalen Smith, then like, to me, that just means you have to trade Jalen Smith. Like, get him out of here, find a situation that does work for him, and move on. Like, if this situation with these injuries isn't enough to continue to give him playing time because you just don't think he's there to be in a playoff type of situation, then like, okay, move on. You already didn't pick up his option. Like, it's time to just be done and get something better out of him, whether that is, attaching picks or, flipping him for a different young player at a different position. I don't know what it looks like, but that's kind of how I feel. Let's keep talking about this, though. Let's keep talking about sort of what we expect for the rest of this season. We'll talk about some of those trade targets and who they might be. What do we think the Suns actually need here? And we'll do that right after a quick word from Shopify. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business, so upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. We started this network a very long time ago, and no one listened for a very long time. It was a bunch of NBA podcasts with a bunch of nerds like me talking pretty much to nobody, especially in Phoenix when the team sucked. And we built it up slowly, and now there are thousands of you listening every day, and honestly, millions of you listening across the network every day. So we know that. That's why we love Shopify, which powers millions of businesses from first sale to full scale around the world. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps across all social platforms. Gain insights as you grow, and more than a store, Shopify grows right along with you. This is Possibility powered by Shopify. To try them out, go to shopify.com/LockedOnNBA, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial to get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. That's shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. Shopify.com/LockedOnNBA. We don't know exactly what the roster will look like for the next couple of weeks, but at some point, Aaron, this roster will look like normal. We'll get some actual tests. It won't be the Pelicans every night. It will be the Jazz here at the end of the month. The Suns play them twice in a week, and some Eastern Conference tests. They play the Warriors in March. Like, this will start to feel like the stretch run fairly soon. So I'm curious what you kind of think here in terms of what is important to you watching this team, caring about this team, wanting them to win a lot and get that ring. Like, what does the end of this season mean to you? Is it just about getting the first seed, the one seed? Is it home court advantage? Is it just health? Like, what are you watching for?
I'm just trying to watch how they close it out. Like, I think that now that they've gone through like the gauntlet of the playoffs, and like Book's body knows how it feels. Ayton, I'm really like wanting to see like how he does it this time around, and because he kind of broke down too. I think they're smart enough to pace themselves like for the playoffs now, and like I think we were going for the best record last year, and I think having Chris Paul and guys that have been through it now, they know they don't necessarily need it. Like, they've kind of beat pretty much everybody that they've needed to so far. So I think like just mostly, I think they want to still win the Utah game. Nuggets game is always going to be big, and Warriors, but for the most part, like I don't think they're all that worried about it. They just want to be healthy by the time the playoffs start, and like just not be too broken down, because I think kind of going for that first seed had them a little tired, even though they were sweeping through and playing pretty well. I just think now, like veteran wise, they know where they want their bodies to be when May comes.
Okay, so a couple of things I want to run by you that I've been talking about on here, and I don't know if I'm just talking to myself too much, but do you think it's realistic that when the Warriors get Clay back, there will be a little bit of like a growing pain adjustment period type of moment for them? I think reintegrating him is going to be more of a thing than people are realizing, just in terms of getting him shots, making him feel comfortable. Like, could they drop a couple games trying to do that? Or is that wishful thinking?
Oh, they definitely could, because I watched them, it was mostly on the defensive end. I watched them play defense, and they are incredible. And it's hard to get in shape to play defense like that when you haven't played for 2 years. And he's really good on defense, but he hasn't played for 2 years, and he's going to be a weak link. They are really good on defense. Like, they move around good. They have one of the smartest dudes on the floor. And I just think like some of that is going to take Clay sometimes. Like, I know he's done it before, but they've been playing better, like as good as I've ever seen him. And it's going to take him a while to get used to like just the pace that they play on defense.
I feel like low key they've been benefiting from Andre Iguodala being out there also.
Yeah.
Like, I think when he really wants to go for it, he probably is still good enough to be out there, but like at a regular season pace every single night, they're probably
Yeah.
better off not have, like, Gary Payton can go out there and bust his butt for like 30 minutes more so than Iguodala at this point. So I'm glad you, like, I don't know, maybe I caught you off guard and you're disagreeing, but I think you're being genuine. And I do think I feel like there could be, some random game like against Minnesota or like one of those middle tier West teams that just, they just get the best of the Warriors while they're figuring things out. Cause it's not just Clay either. It is Iguodala, it's James Wiseman.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to like get a playoff rotation ready rather than just doing the Steph and Draymond and defense show that they've been doing, because that's how they're going to be their best for the playoffs. But right now it's the best is for the young guys to get some run and win in the regular season. So I think that adjustment will even things out, maybe gives the Suns a little bit of an angle to catch back up a little bit right there. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, I caught myself feeling kind of ridiculous, but I still actually, I like made myself double, like, go back over it. I'm like, do I actually think this? Did I just say it as a take on the show, or do I really believe this? It was that I think the Grizzlies scare me more as a second round opponent if I'm the Suns than the Jazz do. Is that just a stupid thing to say? Like, the way that John Moran has been playing and the size that Memphis has and how much trouble that gave the Suns, like, they really scare me as a team right now. And I just think that the Suns match up really well against Utah. Like, that matchup just doesn't really worry me over 7 games.
Yeah, I wasn't really worried about Memphis, honestly. I just think
so neither. So your answer is neither, or are you scared of the Jazz?
No, I think the Jazz would be a pretty tough matchup because I'm still not sure how Ayton is against other bigs, because that Lopez kind of got into that Milwaukee series, and that was like he went against Jokic and he got him like the first 2, but Jokic started getting his a little bit in the last 2 games, but they didn't have anything else. So I'm still like a little bit worried about Ayton against other bigs, and like I don't want him to think it's a 1-on-1 between him and Gobert. And with Memphis, like I just think still a young point guard that is pretty much his entire team. I still think Chris Paul like would still put Ja through it a little bit, because I just don't think he's ready for what playoff Chris Paul is bringing, because Chris Paul's really coasting right now. He's like, there's some times where I think the Boston game he shot like 3 times. Like I really think he's just trying to get to May. And once Chris Paul turns it up, I think that Ja's gonna really realize like he is the GOAT. Like he's the best point guard that we've probably ever seen.
Yeah, those teams are similar in a way, Utah and Memphis, in that if you like, it's kind of all well and good right now, but we know that Mitchell and Morant both are going to really struggle if you make them defend at a high level over and over in a playoff situation. And I just don't think either. I mean, Ja really hasn't had the opportunity to prove that. Mitchell has and just hasn't proven that he can do that. So I think the Suns are going to punish you. Like, I think Michael Porter Jr. could tell you that. Like, if you are out there against the Suns and you can't defend in space or even defend your man, like they're going to expose that. So I think the teams are similar in that way. I totally hear you on Utah. They're obviously the much better team. I just feel like Memphis, with the Suns, don't have a great person to guard Ja, and they don't quite have the size to match up with Memphis. So it seems like more often than not, that team has given them trouble over the past 2 seasons. But yeah, they're unproven, and maybe they're not really that scary. I just, man, some nights you catch them and you're like, is this like the top 2 team in the NBA right now? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, once they get running and making those threes, like they're really good.
It's tough. Okay, last thing here, and you let us right into it. In terms of this season, and we will talk about trades to close out the show, because I think there's a lot to get to there, and I'm curious what you think, Aaron, of what the Suns need and who they could actually get. But Chris Paul, his minutes right now are up from last season, but like you said, and it's something I've been beating the drum on all year too, it's not 32.2 like real minutes. It's kind of like, remember those stories a while ago where like Brian Windhorst and those guys would break down like how little energy LeBron was expending. It feels like that. It feels like that with Chris Paul right now. Like it's like kind of the parent that's kind of taking their kids to like soccer practice and school and whatever, and you can just see behind their eyes not there. That's how I feel some of these games with him, just kind of like, yeah, all right, we did that one. Let's on to the next one kind of thing. But do you think there's any way, like, is there anything that they can reasonably do? I mean, you and I are not scientists, we're not basketball coaches, but like, do you think there's anything that can be done right now to limit the likelihood that he's going to get injured in the playoffs? Or is it just a cross your fingers and pray? Because I don't really feel like you could have predicted any of that last year. Like, you're going to tell me his arm's going to get ripped out of its socket and they could have done something in February to prevent that? Like, I don't know.
Nah, like his was all freak stuff. He got COVID. He got the shoulder thing. He
broke his wrist or hand or whatever.
All of that stuff can just happen in the blink of an eye. And
it seems like it always happens to him, though, which is the problem.
Yeah. I mean, Book got his nose busted. That was probably the first time it's ever happened to him. Like, I think, like, that was just basketball. Like, all of it, it gets more physical in the playoffs. So I think the chances of some stuff like that happening are more. And, I mean, even Giannis's foot almost came off, and he was ready, or his knee, like, we thought his knee was done. Like, I just think, like, just in the playoffs, the speed and just the physicalness is just more. And you could just tell, like,
stop Giannis at all. Can we just? I mean, like, I don't think we adequately like realize that in the moment. That the dude, like, you could have told me he didn't play like until now this season with that, and I would have believed you. And he won Finals MVP. Like,
and just scored 50 points on like a triple-double or something. It was wild.
I don't get it. Okay, well, let's talk about what they could do to improve the roster here and improve their odds, hopefully, with that type of a trade of getting what they couldn't get done last year done at the hands of Giannis Antetokounmpo. We will not obviously relitigate that too much, but it does still hurt. First, though, quick word from BetOnline.ag, guys. BetOnline is your one-stop shop throughout every sporting season. I mean, we got football wrapping up here. It's the best time of year to bet on football, but it doesn't slow down anytime soon. The basketball playoffs shortly thereafter. Baseball, if they decide to get their crap together. BetOnline would like to wish you all a happy betting year as we make our way into 2022. And as always, they are celebrating with a 50% welcome bonus. Here's how you get it. Go to betonline.ag or download their mobile app. Make an account for yourself, and when you do, use the promo code LOCKEDON to get that 50% welcome bonus when you make your first deposit. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON when you make your first deposit to get a 50% welcome bonus straight to your account. From football, basketball, hockey, the playoffs to the regular season, all of it, even your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022 over at BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to wager on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Aaron, I don't think we've talked about trades any of the times that I've had you on this season, so I'm curious. The names are kind of, you're kind of hard-pressed to like find someone new to talk about at this point because Suns fans have been kind of looking at this ever since that roster spot got left open, ever since Jalen Smith stuff started to circulate. They have a little bit of money left in their mid-level exception, which wouldn't be for a trade, but it could be for a buyout. So I've heard a lot more about Eric Gordon lately. I don't know if that interests you. There's obviously Thaddeus Young. David Nash wrote about Kenrich Williams on his newsletter. That got some attention back when the Suns played the Thunder a couple of times last month. Who has your eye? Like, who's a guy that you really think could make a difference, and what type of player do you think the Suns really need?
I think another scoring ball handling guard. I think that's why everybody wants Eric Gordon, because we're one campaign down away from playing Elfrid Payton real minutes in the playoffs. And I just don't think any of us want that. I definitely don't. And so I just think
it doesn't go well for you.
Yeah. So I think like a ball handling point guard. So we don't have like those stalemates to where like Chris Paul or Book have to be in with the bench. We can have a dude like control the floor and get his shot off whenever he wants, because the lineup yesterday was a disaster. Like Elfrid Payton won't shoot, or he can't make a layup, or Justin Johnson, like he just got to the team and was playing. And it's just like, it gets real complicated when you need to give your guys a rest and you just can't get a bucket. And that's like really tough. I mean, Cam Johnson's come a long way, so he could probably, I just need somebody that can handle the ball on the floor with him, with the bench. And I'd feel a lot more confident.
Yeah, it's so tough. Like, it's weird how we kind of all feel like, at least, I don't know, it gets talked about a lot, that point guard and, just sort of that like 6-man scorer type guy is like the most easy thing to find in the NBA.
Yeah.
It's like every year in the draft, it's like, oh, don't take that guy because, everyone has one of those. It's like, yeah, but like at the end of the day, can you have too many? Like the Nets had Cam Thomas is his name, I think, the guy from LSU. And it's like he's already out there for them because they need scoring. Like you can never really have too much of that. And you have Jordan Clarkson out here getting, $20 million a year and winning 6-man of the year. Like those guys are valuable in their own way. And the Suns don't really have a player like that. I mean, like Cameron Payne is kind of close, but like, he's really like a threes and transition type of scorer. Like he's not really somebody who's going to break you down. Like, and I mean, behind him, I mean, they obviously have Booker, but as a bench player behind him, there's nothing. So I get Gordon. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think the number one argument on behalf of that too, I think is, well, I mean, I think they need it, but against the Warriors specifically, I think that was really exposed for the Suns that they just don't have that. Like a lot of people kind of, I think, glommed onto the idea like, okay, Otto Porter made some jumpers, like you win some, you lose some. It's like, okay, but that game was scored on the score of that game, the pace, everything with that game was on the Warriors' terms. Like a Suns win is never, it's ideally it's not going to be 100-98. Like you want it to be 115 to 110 or whatever. And so you want to be able to have a little more juice there. What about Gary Harris? Because he is, I think, mostly been forgotten about. I'm not going to pretend like I've watched him on Orlando much this year, if at all, but like he is shooting better from three than he did in his last couple seasons with Denver. He's up to 36%, which is pretty much league average. He, I think, theoretically could be an option on like the Donovan Mitchell, John Morant, Steph Curry types that the Suns are probably going to see, Damian Lillard, whoever it is. And he might be a little bit more affordable in a trade than somebody like Eric Gordon, who I think is going to get some pretty nice offers for Houston. Does that type of guy interest you? He's very small, but I think I don't know. He at least kind of fills some of the boxes. He can get his own shot off here and there.
Yeah, I mean, but that I feel like that's still too close to campaign. Like that's why I like Eric Gordon. He's just a bigger body. He can get to the line. And that's another thing. Like Suns are still pretty bad at getting to the line. And during the playoffs, like they had real trouble with teams that can get to the line. So I feel like Eric Gordon, a dude coming off the bench that's not scared to go in there and get fouled and get a bucket. Like Gary Harris is too small and he's going to shoot a lot of jumpers. And in the playoffs, you want to play against people like that. So I think like having Cam Payne and Gary Harris, like they're doing the same thing pretty much, and they're not getting fouled.
That's fair. And they're pretty much the same size, whereas Gordon's a little bigger. Like you could switch him a little bit more easily and not be super worried about it. Like is he, his peak defensive guy that he was when he was playing with Chris Paul last time? I don't think he's that anymore, but he has that body that you trust a little bit more. I don't think people realize, maybe they do, that when we're talking about Eric Gordon, I think that in some ways he's just kind of a name because he's a veteran on a bad team. I don't know if people have looked at the fact that he is shooting 45% from three right now. He's taking 5 a game. Like you said, he's gotten to the free throw line still into his old age. He's not old. He's like 33. But he got to the free throw line 4 times per game last year, which was the most he had since he was playing for the Pelicans. So this is still a guy who is producing, and I like that. I guess what I don't necessarily trust with him is, can his body hold up? He's not Torrey Craig, like, right in his prime. He's obviously on the downside of his career and into his, mid-30s at this point. And the defensive numbers have never really loved him. Like, I don't think he's ever been somebody who is stopping somebody. He's really just sort of a team guy, but he's probably the best the Suns can do. I brought up Marcus Smart when the Suns were playing the Celtics because I was just kind of watching him and thinking about that. I think he's a little too erratic. Like, I don't think he's somebody I would see Monty trusting. So I don't know. I don't feel like there's an awesome name out there right now.
Yeah, with Marcus Smart, like the worst thing that could happen is he hits his first 3, and then that's like a disaster waiting to happen after that. I feel like we've kind of tamed campaign in that instance, like a little bit, but having 2 dudes out there who hit their first 3 and now want to jack them all up just won't
the worst sign, I think, No. The worst, actually, Craig was somewhat like that. He took
Yeah.
some like no yes threes himself, and he just happened to get hot. But no, first sign with the smart thing tweeted out from the show account during the game, and our Locked On Celtics host, who's one of the local outlets over there, was like, basically, yeah, please take him. Like, can we get anything of anything for him, please? Like, so that's probably if the people watching him and that team day in and day out are in a hurry to get rid of their player, I don't know if that's quite the guy you want to target for your title chase. But
Yeah.
those are the names right now. So I guess before we close, I would just ask you, like, are any of those players, any of the guys that have been talked about that we kind of are thinking about right now for the Suns, worth a first round pick for you? Like, if you're James Jones, are you in that much of like win at all costs, like all in mode right now to go and get one of those types of guys? Or do you kind of maybe play things a little bit cooler, look what you can get on the buyout market and roll with what you have?
I think we're just gonna have so many late picks now because we're either gonna be great or good. And so like I just don't think he's gonna want a 28th pick. Like I just don't see him wanting that pick. So I really wouldn't mind him getting rid of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really just don't see like the point in keeping like a late pick anymore.
All right. Yeah, I go back and forth. I'm probably a little bit more on like the like married to the team building stuff side of things too much at times. Like I'm over here like really stressing about why they screwed up the Jalen Smith thing so bad when at the end of the day, like they're the 2 seed in the West and just came off of a finals run. So like it didn't matter. But I do think like you don't want to give up value over and over and over, because that's how you start to, what happens after Chris Paul. Like you have to kind of start to think about some of those things, but at the same time, I get the singular focus right now is winning a title. They are in position to do it. There's only so many years and months you have of that being true. So I think if the right deal comes along, you have to take it, even if it means, giving up something of value and it doesn't feel like a perfect trade. If it makes you better and you feel like it's going to get you there, then I think you just have to do it. You don't get lucky every year that Torrey Craig just falls into your lap. You gotta sometimes give stuff up.
I really don't even know where they would have found a chance to find out Jalen Smith was good, honestly. Like he wasn't going to take minutes from Bridges. He wasn't going to take any minutes from Johnson. Like I just don't know where
G-League team.
Yeah, I just don't know where his minutes were going to come from. So I feel like this was always going to happen. Like he was going to be forced to, because something like this would happen. We lose both our bigs. Is the only way we were ever going to find out Jalen Smith was any good. So, and that's just an outlier. Like that was never going to happen.
And
during COVID times.
Maybe that makes you feel like, maybe you don't take a project in that situation. Then maybe you take a little bit more of a surefire guy. Like, I don't know. There's obviously, the draft is easy to look at in hindsight and act like it made, no sense when there was some reasoning to it. And he just didn't. I mean, I think the reality with Smith to wrap, like kind of tie a bow, we were talking about him to start, is like, I think that they saw him as a guy who could play with Ayton, and I think it just became clear, like, if he's going to make it in the NBA, he's probably going to be a 5. And so you can't play him with your franchise center, and then there's no need for him anymore at that point, because he's not going to take minutes from your, third, fourth best player. So we'll see. This was fun though, man. We're hoping to do this every single week, guys. So hopefully that's cool with you. I'm actually not going to change my mind anyway, so we'll see. But it's cool talking to you. You can check his workout at All Caps NBA over at the Take Line YouTube channel. They do that show every week with Jason Concepcion. I'm sure you all know it, but if you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. And I'll recap the game tomorrow night against the Clippers, the late night TNT game for all of you to close out the week. And we'll see where this thing goes. Thanks, guys, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.